Hi, and welcome back. This week in maths, we're learning about volume. And yesterday we looked at the formula that you need to use to solve the volume. Now, when we go over volume again, remember with volume, we're talking about how much can fit inside a 3D, how much space is there inside a 3D object. Okay, so to do that, remember we were doing the length times the width times the height. Length times width times height. And when we were finding that, we were seeing how many of these little 1 centimeter cubes, really poorly drawn, can fit into an object like that. Okay, so we talked about yesterday about doing, it doesn't matter which order you do them, 3 times 4 times 5, it doesn't matter which order, they're always going to be the same answer. So let's start with 5 times 4 equals 20, and then we'll do the new answer, which is 20, take that and times it by 3. Now that would be, so 5 times 4 is 20, take the new answer, times that by 3, the answer is 60 centimeters cubed. That is how we solved the volume of these shapes yesterday. Today's a little bit different. In today's lesson, what we're going to look at is how to solve the volume of a composite shape. Now, a composite shape is a shape that isn't your normal 3D shape. It's not a normal rectangular prism. It might have two parts to it, and you have to split up the parts and solve them individually. Now, the hardest part isn't cutting them. It's once you cut them, making sure you're using the right numbers to times together. That's the hardest part. So if we have a shape like this, you can cut it 2 ways. You could cut it this way and then use that shape and then solve that shape. Or you could cut it across like this and then solve this big shape here and then that shape. What quite often happens is people cut this shape across here, but then when they're solving the volume of this, they use the whole length, the whole height of the shape. I think today we're going to cut this one across like this. Now, to make it a little bit clearer for me, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to use a different color so I can clearly know when I'm using the measurements that I'm getting them right. Because if you're cutting them with your head or you're cutting with a pencil, really you need to clearly see, even color them in 2 different colors would be a great way of knowing so you don't get tricked up. So now that you've split this shape up, we want to look at the volume of both shapes. Let's do the top one first because it's really easy. Now we can see the length of this shape is 2, right? The height of this shape, don't get confused by writing 5 because the new height's only here. Now I haven't written the height here, have I? So how do you know the height? Well, we know here that this line here is 3, right? So that part's 3, but this part is 5. So the part that's left, if that's 3, then this part here has to be 2. So it's 2 times 2, and the depth of this shape you can see here is 2 centimeters. So it's 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8. All right, let's leave that to the side for a second. And now let's look at our other shape. With our other shape, you can see the length of this shape here is 5. Now, once again, people get confused because they look at the height of the shape and then they choose this side, but the height of this shape here down the bottom is only 3. And the depth of my shape is 2. Now, once again, the order in which you solve them is up to you. I could go 2 times 3 first. Let's do that. 3 times 2 is 6. Now I've got my new answer. I'm going to times 6 times 5 equals 30. Now, once you get this, it's really important because the other week, last week in area, people were either leaving those 2 answers by themselves or they were then taking away the area. But remember, this area is 30 centimeters cubed. Sorry, this volume is 30 centimeters cubed, and this was 8 centimeters cubed. So you've got to plus them together. So 30 plus 8, the answer is 38 centimeters cubed. Okay, breaking apart the shape and knowing and filling in all the different areas, all the different lengths, because sometimes they won't give you a height like this or a height like this. But if they don't give you this, but they give you this one down here, it's going to be the same. Let's go through one more and see how we go, okay? Okay, so for my second example, I've done a really bad job. I didn't realize when I was drawing it that the shape would go off the top of this page, but it's always gone off the top of there. But that's okay. We can still solve it without it because we've got all of the lengths we need. Because we've got the length, the length, which is 6. We've got the depth, which is 3. Now that 3 there is the same 3 across the whole way. It's drawn poorly, but that width has not changed, okay? I'll make sure that I write that in just so you know. That has not changed. Now, the height of this part's 3, the height of this part's 4, and the height of the whole thing is 7. We've got all of the different lengths we need to solve this. Once again, we can cut it whichever way we want. Let's do it differently this time. Let's cut it downwards to see how you would go cutting it downwards. Okay, so this shape here is the one we're going to do first. And then we're going to do that second part then. Okay, so let's look at this shape. Now, they don't tell you this part here, but up the top, they tell you that the length of this shape is 2. The depth, what did we say the depth was? The width, whatever you want to call it, is 3. Right, so it's 2 by 3, and the height is all the way up here, which is 7. Okay, so 2 times 3 is 6. And now we're going to do 6 times 7, which is 42 centimeters cubed. And then we're going to plus it together with our second shape. Now, this is the biggest part that people get tricked on, okay? People choose the length as 6. It's the number one thing I see people do wrong. Okay, they'll get the depth right again because the depth doesn't change. Here, they'll get 3, and they'll get 3 here. And then they'll do times 6, and they'll solve that shape. But really, we're only solving this part, which the length is now 4. Okay? It's really important that you don't solve, like if you're going to cut this part off here, don't then do the bottom shape, the whole thing, because then you're covering the same volume twice. So 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 4, 9 tables, 9 times 4 is 36. Okay? Now we know this is 36, and this part here is 42. And if you plus those two together, the answer ends up 78 centimeters cubed. Okay? The important thing is when you're cutting the shape to not count the same area, same volume twice. Okay? It's really important that you get your numbers right, because I think you guys are really good at using the algorithm to get the right answer, but sometimes you count the wrong side, or you count 7 centimeters here, but then you do 6 over here. It's really important that when you cut up the shape, use different colors so you don't get confused with what numbers to write down. I hope that's helped, and there'll be an easier sheet, which is like this, and the hardest sheet, there might be one with a decimal place. Just pick whichever one applies to you. Give it a go. If you have any problems, just let me know. Thanks for watching.